It's nice to be here. Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you to all the members that are in this panel. Thank you for being in here and to participate. And I hope that we can give good impact in this theme of e-learning and classroom technology. Nowadays, across in Africa, we are seeing e-learning education policies being put in place and new classroom technologies such as laptops, tablets, and interactive whiteboards. E-learning is quickly becoming an asset not only to the students but to communities and teachers as well. It provides the means for gaining stronger work skills, allows for global partnerships to develop, and increases the quality of education programs. We are seeing a global movement towards the digitalization of classrooms, so what is happening on the ground and what impact will that have in the classroom and on the education systems, it's what we are going to discuss. Just doing a little remind, the Honorable Secretary of State from Equatorial Guinea is going to speak in Spanish. I will do a small translation after he answers the questions in English, so everyone could understand it better. And now I will do the first question to His Honorable Secretary of State and ask, Equatorial Guinea continues to heavily invest its oil revenues in the country's education sector, and you made a high-level political declaration earlier this year under the title of Innovating Together, Enabling ICTs for Sustainable Development. Can you give the audience an idea of the size of such investment, and has your cabinet agreed to lay down specific plans for the education sector, such as laptops for children and broadband connectivity for all the schools? You can answer.
Muchas gracias. Muy buenos días a todos. Justamente hablaría en español para expresarme mejor.
He's saying, thank you everyone for being in here. He's going to speak in Spanish so we can speak better about this matter.
Me gustaría, ante todo, felicitar al gobierno y al pueblo hermano de Uganda por la magnífica acogida y la hospitalidad dispuesta en esta paradisíaca localidad y a los organizadores de este importante evento por la excelente organización.
I'd like to thank you to the brotherhood country as Uganda and for the organization for the excellent conference and hospitality that we are having.
Y antes de entrar de lleno en la cuestión que me hacen, quisiera abrir un pequeño paréntesis señalando que efectivamente después del descubrimiento del petróleo en el territorio nacional y tras una primera conferencia económica en el año 1997, en la que se definieron justamente las prioridades de la nueva era petrolera del país, en el año 2007 se celebró la segunda conferencia económica nacional en la que se esbozó una nueva visión de Guinea Ecuatorial con el horizonte en el año 2020 y se formalizó la estrategia a seguir en el Plan Nacional de Desarrollo Económico y Social, que tenía como ambición hacer uso de los recursos generados por la explotación de hidrocarburos para erradicar la pobreza y edificar una economía inclusiva, diversificada y emergente.
Before answering this question, I'd like to do a little synthesis about some conference that already occur in Equatorial Guinea. That begins the first one in 1997, where we defined the priorities for the export, the petroleum, and what to do with the money that revenues from that commodity. In 2007, we also have created a second conference where we did and they explained the vision.
Okay, we hablo español, so you don't need to interpret in Spanish because we can do that in English.
It was
So don't
John.
worry about
It was John that told me to do it.
It's okay. Tell him to speak in Spanish and you do it in English.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
it's okay, right?
Yeah, it can be English channel. People listen in English.
They don't need to change. They just keep it in the English channel.
Okay. Okay. So everyone is telling me that they are going to do the translation directly. So I will not do any more translation. His Honorable will speak in Spanish, and you can listen directly in English by the translation. Okay? Eles vão fazer la traducción, portanto puedes hablar normalmente en español y ellos hacen la traducción para inglés, ¿ok?
Ok.
Puedes continuar.
Muchas gracias. El Plan Nacional de Desarrollo Económico y Social del que he hablado es liderado y monitoreado por
We
una agencia nacional.
do have a national agency that does monitoring, and the Secretary of State is ahead of this particular assignment, and that is why I am here today. I am the Secretary. I'm a Secretary of State, but also deal with the telecommunications and also dealing with transport issues for the government of Guinea. And I'd like to say that in the National Plan for Economic Development, we do have we do have national guidelines, and that also guides the policies. And so this is something that we started in 2007 through the conference that I just talked about. Now, we do have the work divided into two phases. First of all, the first phase was concluded with, we had very good results. And we had a plan starting from, first evaluation in 2012. And one of the things that we did was to work on budgets specifically dedicated to the construction of basic infrastructure and in order to have a diversified economy. On the second phase, we're on the second phase right now because after 2012, in the budget we seek to invest. For example, our strategic plan 2012 to 2016, we are mostly interested in the production sector, the social sector, and in this case, education and health, etc. In this way, it's very important to emphasize that in our budgets during this second phase, we are very interested in the measuring of results, and we have created indicators and objectives. And so Equatorial Guinea, right now, we are working on this evaluation process with the help of the World Bank. And through the indicators, we can be able to measure results, identifying priorities, and thinking about the programs that are geared towards national development. For example, education for all, and also a digitalized nation. This is a very important component, and so strengthening of human resource and capacity building is very important to us at this time. And so as we get to the 2016, we are identified 2.6% of the national budget for this particular program. Talking about specific plans, like laptops for the young children, I would say that what we are planning to do in 2016 is a technological plan for the education sector, and which is evidently which evidently would be a part of the solutions that we're trying to offer through the plans that we do have. Broadband connectivity, high-speed broadband connectivity is going to be a big priority. For the secondary school is going to be a priority, and a plan that we do have up to 2020. I would say thank you very much for
now
this
passing
opportunity
for
to speak.
A question for Mr. Undersecretary of ICT of Swazilandia, Mr. Bekitemba Gama. When we held Innovation Africa in Cape Town, Director of Education, Dr. Sibongile Matsali, outlined a number of learning initiatives that include the China-Taiwan Computer Project, the Computer Education Trust, UNESCO Japan funding, the Coca-Cola Foundation, and the MTN Swaziland project. That was 3 years ago. Can you tell us now what impact these projects have had, and is there now a concerted and coordinated effort between your ministries of ICT and education to deliver e-learning to all Swazi secondary students as official government policy?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everyone. I want to start by also thanking the government of Rwanda for hosting us in this year's Innovation Africa 2015, and also AfricanBrains. And also I want to convey apologies from my Honorable Minister of Education and Training, Dr. Phineas Makakula, who could not make it to this summit because of engagements in other state duties. So he has sent us to come here in this summit to represent the Minister of Education and Training. Now, coming back to your question, which you have just asked, we can respond by saying that as a government, particularly the Minister of Education and Training in the Kingdom of Swaziland, we are committed enhancing teaching and learning through the use of ICTs. And we have a number of policy documents that clearly state that we want to move in that direction. That is the embedding of ICTs in our education system. We have, for instance, from way back in 2006, the National Information and Communication Infrastructure Policy, which emphasizes that Swazis have to be more competitive in the global economy by optimizing the technology use in teaching and learning. We have also our education and training sector policy that was formulated and launched in 2011, and which is now due for review next year in 2016. That one has a very positive stance towards ICT education and also ICT literacy. We have also our e-government strategy for the entire government of Swaziland, which is for the period 2013 to 2017. This strategy, among other things, recommends, especially in the section that deals with education, it recommends that we should develop an e-learning strategy and equip our learners with basic ICT skills so that by the time they leave the school education system, they are ICT literate. And last but not least, we also have the National Science, Mathematics and Technology Education Policy for the period 2014 to 2019. This one emphasizes the use of ICT as a tool in the teaching of science, mathematics and technology, such as facilitating teaching and learning, assessment, management, and record keeping and other things. Now, maybe to touch on the specific partners that you referred to in your questions, the Chinese project, the Japanese, the UNESCO, and so on. We still have these projects that are still ongoing. We are still working very closely with our development partners, the Republic of China on Taiwan specifically. They are assisting us a lot in the country in a number of initiatives, not only in education, but also in other ministries. in education, in particular in ICT education. They are assisting us in terms of construction of labs, computer labs, and we have an ongoing project, a 3-year ongoing project with the Republic of China and Taiwan. Each year they are constructing 10 computer labs. So this project is in its second year now. So last year they constructed 10 computer labs countrywide. Swaziland is a very small nation with the population of total population of around 1.2 million people. So and we have 4 regions. So when we receive the assistance, we try to evenly distribute the assistance up evenly amongst the 4 regions. That is about the Chinese. They also assist us with the computer provision and the printers and the projectors, as I've already said. We also have recently assistance that we're getting from the Japanese through the Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA. We have an ongoing volunteer program also in ICT education. We also have cooperation with KOICA, Korea, the government of Korea, Korea International Cooperation Agency. And again here we have volunteers coming from South Korea to Swaziland because we have a shortage of mathematics and science teachers. So they come as volunteer teachers to come and teach mathematics and science. And locally we also have other partners, especially in the ICT industry. We have MTN Swaziland. And this year MTN Swaziland, for example, has assisted us a lot. They have piloted a project whereby they were trying to distribute interactive whiteboards in our secondary schools. And we are hopeful that this project is going to continue in the future. Maybe that is why I can end for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Doctor. Now, passing to Mr. Henry Gwede from the Deputy Director, College of Distance Education from Malawi. I will ask, just a couple weeks ago, the President of Malawi made a pledge that his administration would invest more in education sector to improve the quality of education. In our view, is it a priority that Malawi now adopts a coordinated countrywide approach to e-learning, and that ultimately the government should be targeting investment in classroom technologies such as laptops, tablets, and interactive whiteboards?
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. In the first place, let me thank the government of Uganda for hosting the conference, as well as the warm reception rendered to us. Secondly, let me also convey sincere apologies from the Honorable Minister of Education, Science and Technology, Dr. Emmanuel Fabiano, and the Secretary of Education, Science and Technology, Mrs. Margarita, for not making it to this important conference because of some other equally important engagements. Let me go to your question. Yes, ICT is seen as one of the priorities in Malawi. We have to move with technology. We are living in a global village, and there is no need for Malawi to lag behind. And to show this seriousness, the Malawi government has developed the Ict Policy Paper, which is outlining strategies on how ICT can improve the quality of teaching and learning in classrooms. In addition to show the seriousness of the issue, there is inclusion of computer studies in the national curriculum at secondary school level. They have to understand the basic concepts as regards ICT from that stage, so that when they graduate into another level of education, they are very much conversant with basic skills and knowledge as regards ICT. You might wish to know that as a government, there are various pilot studies on classroom technology. For example, at primary level, especially at the lower grades, we have what we call IRI, interactive radio instruction. Programs are being aired on the national radio, and learners, they are able to listen to these programs in classrooms, of course, under the guidance of the classroom teacher. This is, in one way or the other, a deliberate move just to train learners at this stage to understand and appreciate listening skills. Let me also quick to say that at higher level, one of the constituent colleges of the University of Malawi, Chancellor College, this one is also implementing e-learning activities. Chancellor College is connected to 53 countries through satellite, where this is forming an interface with lectures in other countries and share knowledge and skills in specific area in the field of study. Plans are underway that Chancellor College will design its own programs to continue with this e-learning platform. We have also what we call the TV white spaces, whereby secondary school learners are benefiting through the use of mobile phones to access information. All these are taking place to ensure that learners appreciate that we are living in the global village and ICT is of paramount importance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Now passing to the Managing Director of Pearson Africa, Mrs. Jane Bursey. I'd like to asking you about Pearson has had to adapt from traditional educational publisher to a full-service educational technology company. Can you summarize what are the most up-to-date digital learning services available to African governments that feature e-learning tools, digital content, resources, and electronic support device service?
Thank you. I'd just like to start by saying thank you to the Ugandan government and the ministry for hosting us here. It's a real privilege to be in this forum and to be able to share experience and learn from what's happening in so many different places in the continent, and also to the organizers of the conference for a really efficient and hospitable welcome and proceedings. So thank you. In answer to the question, what are the most up-to-date digital learning services available to African governments, for example, future e-learning tools, digital content, resources, and electronic support services? I'd like to start by saying that, of course, there is a tremendous amount available in these areas that can be deployed to support education across the continent. There are management information systems that are widely available. There are many courses that can be made digitally available, that can be deployed either via online or tablet access. And there are lots of resources to help support teachers in implementing these in the classroom. Examples of courseware that would be available, for example, if you think about the higher education space, where many higher education institutions are digitally connected nowadays and even have Wi-Fi available for all the students on their campuses, it's possible to provide those students with e-learning materials delivered digitally to their tablets, whether it's a bring your own device sort of tablet system or whether it's a university provided devices, but students can have the content on their tablets and they can interact with the content, they can make their notes in the content, they can engage with other students through the online platforms that are available. The lecturers can manage tutorials through those systems, etc., etc. These systems have been around for a while. I think the reason why they are maybe not so widely deployed across the continent is that they do require a certain amount of technology to be available in order to be able to implement. But we are seeing rapid progress towards having that kind of technology available to be able to implement these kinds of deployments. In the school space, of course, things are taking a little longer to get up and running, but again, tremendous progress is being made, and the various initiatives that we've been hearing about in the conference are examples of those. But digital learning resources are not a new thing. In various parts of the world, including in places in Africa, it's possible to have reading programs delivered online, where, for example, the teacher would have the readers available online. She can allocate the readers to the learner can progress through them, the teacher can monitor the progress, can ascertain the extent of understanding of the learners, and can track and record assessment for those learners. The same would apply to maths programs. These things are available. The question is, how do we bring them here? How do we deploy them on this continent so that they work effectively? And I think there's a lot of learning that one can refer to around exactly that question. How do you deploy these things so that they work effectively on the continent? I'll refer to a recent paper, September this year, brought out by the OECD, where the OECD was looking at the impact of school technology on the international test results, such as the PISA tests, with which I think many people are fully familiar, and that are taken in more than 70 countries around the world. They actually look at testing the results in progress in reading, mathematics, and science. And in this paper, the OECD makes the point that education systems that have invested heavily in ICTs have not necessarily seen noticeable improvement in their PISA results. That may sound strange, but it's nevertheless what is being disseminated by the OECD. So they, for example, give the example of the best performing education systems, such as many of those in East Asia, with which I think we're probably familiar. Many of these nations have been quite cautious about deploying technology in their classrooms. Children do not spend many hours every day on technological devices. In fact, they spend less than 30 minutes a day actually using the technology in the classrooms. But they have the best results in the mathematics and science tests. Whereas other nations, typically that take the PISA tests, Australia, for example, the UK was not in the study, they do not notice a big improvement in these test results, although they have children spending up to 2 hours a day using technological devices in the classroom and using ICT in education. So what is it that's making the difference? Now, the paper doesn't go into that, but I would venture that what is making the difference is actually the quality of the instruction and the ability of the teacher to use effectively the ICTs in the classroom. And that, of course, is a real challenge. Firstly, teachers need to be made digitally literate, and as we know, that has been a challenge on the continent and remains a challenge in many places. So having teachers become comfortable with digital devices and digital technology is a very important first step in the process. However, when one implements any e-learning rollout program in classrooms and provides teachers and learners with devices and e-learning content, I think it's very important that that is fully supported by pedagogic and online support for teachers, so that they can actually implement properly. There was a recent project that we conducted in 12 rural schools, very rural schools in a particular country on the continent. It's still ongoing actually, it's not yet completed, but we were looking at what would be the best practice for implementing an e-learning solution using tablets and hardware in the subjects of English, maths and science being very core subjects. And two of the lessons learned that I'd just like to quickly highlight as I conclude this.
I asked that it be synthesized because
two lessons. That it's really important that teachers get that support, that very often the lack of basic skills is one of the inhibitors of actually being able to implement properly. And interestingly enough, that you don't have to have online connectivity the whole time. It's important to have some, but not necessarily online connectivity the whole time. The support is critical.
Okay, thanks, Jan. Now I will ask more one question. I will ask that, if possible, give me synthesized answers because we begin a little bit later and the time is quickly passing. So now for Honorable Secretary of State from Equatorial Guinea, I will ask, Equatorial Guinea is a relatively small population with a high GDP per capita income. Do you agree that in fact you have the resources and capabilities to deliver the highest standard of digital technology to every classroom in your country? So if resources are not the issues, if it's just a matter of technology transfer, in-country skills and service providers with the knowledge how to achieve such an aim, potential you could have a world-class digital education system within a short space of time and properly coordinated?
Gracias. Es cierto que tenemos esta peculiaridad.
We have a very peculiar situation in Equatorial Guinea.
Según los resultados preliminares del
According to preliminary results of the last census, we only have about 1.5 million inhabitants.
es cierto también que
And I'd like to say that
el precio del
with the fall of petrol prices in our world markets,
o sea, antes de la caída teníamos un PIB
and thinking about before that, the fall, we had quite an elevated GDP.
una evaluación la agencia
And so we had to have an evaluation on a national level on the results or the of expected. We carried out an evaluation of the expected results in the first phase of the national economic policy, and so as you know, there are so many growth opportunities that were hampered because of the fall in the prices of petrol, and so.
creo que para que haya
And so I think that
transferencia de conocimiento
one thing that we'll need talking about technology, we'll need transparency. We need solid technology in spite of all the changes that we're going through.
por supuesto,
Of course,
un país puede disponer
the country can have so many economic resources, natural resources, etc., etc.
no tiene un capital
But the most important thing is human capital that's well educated. It becomes very hard to achieve the results and the sustainable objectives that you have set that are related to education and health. Just to mention a few examples.
razón por la cual
That is the reason why.
dijo en su día nuestro insigne Nelson Mandela,
That is why talking about what Nelson Mandela said, that education is the most important weapon
puedes usar para
that we can use to change the world.
a esta sabiduría yo añadiría que las
To that wisdom, I would like to say
nos abren nuevos horizontes
that we have to
viajar más rápido en el tiempo
understand that with education we can move faster,
cuando que nos empoderamos de ello.
and especially when education comes with empowerment, and vice versa, and when the people empower the other people.
Mr. Gama, as a Undersecretary who has been in both the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of ACT, you are well placed to tell us what the key developments are in e-learning in Swaziland. Can you please summarize your government's plans for strengthening its computer equipment provision and construction of computer laboratories in schools requiring such facilities, particularly those located in remote rural areas? And furthermore, are you creating more posts to have ICT instruction in schools? I please that everyone answers summarized. If not, it's going to pass the time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I want to reiterate the fact that as a Minister of Education and Training, we are committed in strengthening the position of ICT, particularly in our schools, as a subject in its own right, and also in its integration across the school curriculum. As I have already responded earlier, that we are having a number of initiatives working with partners, the government, together with our development partners. Such initiatives include the continuous provision of the requisite infrastructure and equipment for the development of ICT skills for our learners. And recently we have started or initiated a project in the schools where we have computer labs, a project whereby we are trying to establish local area networks in those schools and connecting those schools to the internet. And of course we have to, we try by all means as a ministry to support the schools by negotiating for discounted rates, you know, from the internet service providers, so that the charges are not that much high for schools. So we want our schools to be connected. We also have other partners coming in, trying to assist using the technology that has already been mentioned here several times, the TV white spaces. So that one has already been piloted, I think, 2013 and 2014, and we want now to actually have more schools come on board to actually use the technology, the TV white space in the connection of the schools to the internet. And also we have recently last year introduced a 3-year pre-service diploma program in one of our colleges of technologies to train teachers that are going to come out of the college and become actually ICT teachers. As I've already mentioned earlier, that we are having an acute shortage of mathematics, science, and ICT teachers. So to try to address that problem, so one of our colleges of technologies has already mounted a 3-year diploma program to try and address that issue of shortage of ICT teachers. So we're hoping to have the first cohort graduate in 2017 they will come out of that college and come and become ICT teachers to teach our learners at school, in schools. And also on the issue of posts, each and every year, as all ministries, of government ministries, including the Ministry of Education and Training, we submit our requests for posts for the coming year to the Ministry of Public Service. So when we submit our requests as Ministry of Education and Training to the Ministry of Public Service, we submit it as a special request so that it is given special attention by the Ministry of Public Service, because ICT is one of the priority areas in education and for our government. So that is what we have tried to do. And also we have recently in 2014 developed together with our National Curriculum Center a standard ICT curriculum or teaching syllabus for our primary level and also for our junior secondary level. And both syllabus documents have gone through the approval structures of the ministry and that they've been approved. So what is supposed to follow now is actually the piloting of those teaching syllabuses and the development of the pilot materials. After that is done, then we are going to roll out that syllabus to all our primary schools and all our secondary schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard. Mr. Ray, one of your proposed training and education priorities for Malawi in the next 3 years is to promote the learning in open and distance learning. Can you explain how to achieve that in the next 3 years and what level of investments are required to deliver this priority?
Thank you, Chair. You might wish to know that distance education in Malawi can be traced way back in 1965. And we have to move with time, because in those days we're using print media. Now today, we can no longer emphasize on that, but we need to graduate into another mode of putting across information in distance education, and that is e-learning. So plans have been put in place to ensure successful implementation of such activities in distance education through e-learning. This could be the acquisition and installation of software and hardware in designated places closer to consumers where they can tap information. We also intend to build information and digital literacy capacity of teachers, students, administrative staff, and the general public, so that they appreciate the use of ICT gadgets. Plans are also underway to create networks, collaboration, and partnership with other service providers, for example, mobile telephone companies and other private sector institutions which provide services in the same area, to come together and map the way forward and see which areas could be used to facilitate the implementation of e-learning in schools across or along the sector. Another area of interest is ICT research agenda. Plans are underway to come up with an ICT research roadmap for Malawi, so as to provide direction of ICT research for the country, for evidence-based policies that inform the government to come up with plausible and informative policies for e-learning. Related to this is the establishment of National Digital Repository research for Malawi. We hope to collect research outputs for Malawian institutions and build their capacity. From these outputs, learners and other interested parties will be able to learn what is all about as regards e-learning as applied in distance education.
I will ask that, please synthesize.
Lastly, we are looking at last mile connectivity initiative. That's through Malawi Communications Regulatory Authority in conjunction with other international organizations. Would like to embrace what we call Connect Constituency Project. That is taking closer ICT information to the rural masses so that they can appreciate e-learning through such establishment. These are some of the plans which the government of Malawi would like to embark on so as to facilitate e-learning as regards distance education.
Thank you, Deputy Director. Jane, as an education publisher, you are having to develop online resources to help teachers. Can you tell us what interactive online teacher development and training programs are available in Africa, and accordingly how ministries of education can utilize such service to reach their demanding targets for teacher professionalization?
Is it working?
Yeah.
Thank you. It's an interesting question. What online interactive teacher development and training programs are available in Africa? Are available worldwide, I would say. The interesting thing is that in looking at this, it became apparent to me, and it is certainly what is happening in my company, Pearson, that in fact there's not a lot of wholly online professional development training available. The preferred model at this point seems to be, and I'm speaking not just as Pearson but broadly, the preferred model seems to be either face-to-face or a blended model where there's some face-to-face and some online. And interestingly enough, the professional development that's available that is online would probably concentrate mostly on improving the teachers to be able to use ICT. So actually fairly basic ICT skills, and progressing from there into looking at how you might actually implement ICT in the classroom and use the resources effectively in the classroom. So it tends to center around actual ICT itself. When you look at the professional development programs that are available, say, to improve teachers' pedagogical competence in a particular subject, such as maths, there is not a tremendous amount available online. There are some, and I think we're learning from these projects as we implement them. So, for example, there is a project that we are currently implementing actually in South Africa in conjunction with the university, which is called, it's all about teaching maths to non-mother tongue learners, and it's to improve the actual teaching skills of teachers of maths in junior primary, grades 4 to 6, to enable them to be more competent teachers of maths. That program is going to be delivered online through the university's LMS, and the teachers will obviously be registered at the university. But there are not a lot of these programs. An example of a blended program which can be delivered in scale, doesn't have to be limited by number, would be a project we've delivered, for example, in Saudi Arabia. There was a maths and science teacher development project where 100,000 maths and science teachers have actually been trained over a period of 3 years. The project ends this year, in a blended approach, face-to-face and online and self-study, with 500 master trainers delivering the face-to-face component of that. So this seems to be the preferred approach globally around professional development, and it's certainly still the approach we're seeing a lot of on the continent.
Thank you, Jen. I'd like to thank you at the end of this panel to all my colleagues that had been in here. It was a pleasure to be presenting this panel. Any questions afterwards, everyone can meet in the meetings in the afternoon. And now we finish with a small video that we present to you.
Life begins as a blank canvas. When you're born, the first thing you do is communicate. Then you start discovering the essence of life. By taking the first little steps, you start growing up, defining your way through this incredible journey. And as you're enjoying the feeling of it, you quickly learn how to reach a higher ground. Life begins as a blank canvas. Blank, yet full of promise. This blank canvas is an opportunity for you to create the long path by which you can walk. You follow your way along with a canvas, learning what life has to teach you. And once you start drawing your unique identity on it, the canvas becomes yours. Forever. It all begins and ends with you. And you are an executive. You are a chef. You're the teacher. Aware that learning is the starting point for every goal, we've created a global technological solution for education, promoting communication, creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, and problem solving. We've been present on people's daily lives for almost 40 years, with continuous innovation, developing products that help people to communicate. We have a global presence. Our products supply more than 60 countries across all 5 continents. Our green strategy is also highly demanding. We use certified products in a sustainable production. Inside the office and in hospitals, at home and in different workspaces, we are that canvas always nearby, ready for you to use. A canvas that will help you improve the management of your daily life so you can be closer and spend more time with the ones you love. Because this is definitely the best time in your life. By Silk, life-building canvas.